Happy Monday. Happy Monday. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Uh, in today's Monday Music Motivation, we're going to be talking about some kind of fun and interesting things and something that I kind of was exploring a little bit this past weekend in my own playing as well, which is usually what I do on the live Monday Music Motivation is take something that's feeling relevant to me or my students at the time and sort of package it in a way that will hopefully be helpful for you and give you a little bit of inspiration and motivation to make this a great week of practice and a really fulfilling time of playing your clarinet. So what I want to talk about today is this idea of kind of balancing your expectations so you can get into the flow state. If you aren't familiar with the flow state, it's this really fascinating idea that was largely sort of pioneered by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. I think I'm saying it right. Who is doing research on this kind of flow state. And what the flow state is when you sort of get into the zone and it feels like hours pass by in minutes, where you can sort of get completely engrossed in whatever you're working on and not even realize how much time has passed. And the beauty of the flow state is that's kind of where our learning is optimized. When we're in that flow state, our brain is fully engaged and really sort of encoding and learning and really digesting whatever we're working on. So you can imagine how for learning a piece of music or learning to play the clarinet, that sort of focus and engagement can be really, really valuable for making really great progress. Now, there's an interesting little caveat, or maybe how and an instruction guide to getting into the flow state. And one of the important things, and I'm not an expert on the flow state necessarily, so feel free to look up videos and do research about the flow state. But one of the key things from my understanding of it is that the activity that we're doing needs to be engaging enough that we actually engage with it, but also not so challenging that we get frustrated with it. So there's kind of this very narrow sweet spot kind of at the edge of our comfort zone where we're going to be fully engaged to get into the flow state, but it's not going to be so overwhelming that we get frustrated, which will also prevent us from being in the flow state. So finding that sweet spot is very important. Now the problem with that is we aren't in charge most of the time of what music we're playing. We play in a band and the conductor gives us the music and we may be playing whatever part it is, and maybe sometimes there's a few moments of really challenging stuff that we have to dig into, or maybe there's only a few moments of easy stuff that we don't have to practice and everything else is crazy practicing, really, really challenging and almost to that point of frustration. So how can we kind of fine tune that so that we can be in the flow state and getting our most satisfying playing and our most optimal growth when we encounter such variety of music levels and challenging music? We can't control if the music is hard enough to be engaging or too hard that it's frustrating. So what can we do? And this is where I think balancing our expectations can be really valuable. So I experienced this past weekend. I was playing a concert and the music for the concert was pretty manageable for me. There were a few moments that were quite challenging actually, but for the most part the music was relatively easy. And when I'm playing in sort of a group where the music's relatively easy, I find that I can kind of just like coast by and play well enough. But whenever I have that sense of being good enough, that's kind of a red flag in my mind. And I think, well, do I want to just play good enough, or do I want to play actually really well and play up to my full potential, even on easy music, even if I could get away with not playing up to that full potential? And that's where I raise my expectations and get pickier with it. So when I'm dealing with easy music where I can get away with good enough, I allow my awareness to expand and I think, okay, I'm playing the right notes and rhythms, no problem, that's great. But am I playing it really musically? Am I really matching the articulations of the people around me? What if I could like listen across and match intonation with the flutes or the trumpets or whoever and actually really find that sweet spot of intonation and find that really precise articulation and phrasing and really do how the music goes and make every note come out exactly the way that I want and sort of raise those expectations. Now, on the other hand, which is maybe more common, is where the music's too challenging. And in those situations, it can be so easy to just get frustrated because you're sort of banging your head against the wall, trying to play fast enough or trying to play high enough or trying to play soft enough or whatever the challenge is. And we get frustrated and kind of just give up on it. In those situations, it can actually be really beneficial to kind of lower our expectations. Instead of saying, this should be all 16th notes at 136 beats per minute, with high staccato clarion notes that are piano. That sounds like a nightmare to play. I hope I never have to play anything like that. But you're experiencing this sort of nightmare thing where, like, if this was to go perfectly, it would be exceptionally challenging. Instead of thinking, I need to be able to play that perfectly, and if I'm not playing it like that, then it's not worth playing. Instead, lower your expectations a little bit and say, maybe I can just play just the one note on every beat and that will be enough. And that's enough to keep my brain engaged and keep focusing on it. And I can feel really satisfied when I get to the concert and successfully play each note on the beat because I grew and I did better than when I started. Or maybe you could even do eighth notes and play 2 notes per beat rather than the 4 notes per beat of the 16th notes. Or whatever it may be, allowing your expectations to lower a little bit. Maybe you can play all of the 16th notes and tongue it cleanly enough. Maybe it's not your best sound quality, but it's okay. You can let go of that expectation because it would be too frustrating to try to play with your best sound with perfect articulation, up to tempo, with clean fingers, nailing all the notes, getting the dynamics, etc., etc., etc. In general, when we're learning things, I am a big proponent of really truly knowing how the music goes and having all of those details clearly in your mind and really knowing what you're aiming for and then practicing up to it. And I think we can still do that. But we have to remember in our specific practice sessions, specific rehearsals, we have to accept where we currently are, balance our expectations to where we can enter that flow state. Because when we get into the flow state, because we're fully engaged with it and it's not too frustrating, that's when we actually start to really digest the information and our brain really processes it. And we don't see it as like, well, I'll never be able to do that, so what's the point in even trying? And we start seeing it as, I can't do that right now, but I can do this simplified version and I can get the notes and I can still engage with the music and still find joy playing it, even if I'm not playing it perfectly. And then that will build on itself. I'll also add one other little tangent related to this too. If you're playing in a community band or community orchestra or literally anything that isn't a top level professional group, you can get away with not being perfect. It's a community. It's about making music together. It's about having fun. You aren't trying to create the most flawless, perfect rendition of whatever you're working on. So it's okay to not play everything perfectly. Now, if you're a professional subbing with a very high-level professional group or doing an audition, then you can't get away with that. But I think most people watching this and most musicians in the world are just enthusiasts who are there to have fun. So do whatever you need in the music to sort of balance those expectations so that you can be having fun. And the other brief tangent about this too that just came to mind is you can do this with different parts of the music, even in the same piece too. There might be 4 measures in the piece where you have to be like, I don't care how I sound, I'm not going to play all the notes, I'm just going to hang on for dear life. Still engaging with it, still with the potential that maybe someday you'd be able to do it, but you're just going to get what you can get right now. And then maybe even the exact next 4 measures, you sort of dial up the expectations again and say, okay, this is just easy half notes and quarter notes, but I'm going to make these sound beautiful and clear. So we can always be balancing those expectations to sort of stay engaged in the flow state. Now, before we wrap up the Monday Music Motivation, we have to do the most important part of the Monday Music Motivation, which is to fill out our practice template. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on sort of balancing those expectations and some motivation and inspiration to get to work this week practicing. So this is what the template looks like. I highly encourage you to actually fill this out for yourself. If you can get this actual PDF that's blank at quickstartclarinet.com/login in my free members area, which also has a ton of other free resources that are my favorite free resources. Or you can just create it for yourself, which is the date for the week, reflection on how things are going for you, your goal for this week, and then your plan for what you're going to practice and when you're going to practice. And once you have those things down, you sort of know where you are, reflected, sort of feeling out what you need to work on. You've set that goal for what you want to accomplish this week, and if you accomplish that goal, then this week will have been a success in practicing, and then you've planned how you're going to get to that goal. Then you take that plan, put it in your calendar, put it in your planner, set reminders, do whatever you need to do to actually make those appointments happen so that you reach that goal this week and keep moving forward. So I hope that that was helpful and gave you some food for thought for this week as you practice. I hope that you have a fantastic week of practice, and I will see you next week on the next live Monday Music Motivation. Have a fantastic week, everybody. Bye.